Hey everybody, Billy Obenauer here, continuing our lecture series on Noe and Colleagues' Fundamentals of Human Resource Management book. In this lesson, we'll be covering Chapter 14, Providing Employee Benefits. Employee benefits refers to forms of compensation other than cash. Benefits are advantageous for employers because they can receive volume discounts that employees can't, so the value of employee benefits to employees is greater than the cost of the benefits to the employer. When a benefits package is formed strategically, it can help to attract, retain, and motivate employees by providing them with what they need and helping them achieve economic security. Benefits packages are important to being an attractive employer. They can also be designed in such a way that employees can take advantage of tax benefits. The importance of employee benefits as a form of compensation has grown over the years. As you can see from this chart, in 1928, in the United States of America, employee benefits only accounted for 2.9% of an employee's total compensation package. But since then, unions have had a strong influence on the workplace, and new legislation has been passed. Now, as we look at the progression here over the years, you can see that by 2017, benefits accounted for 31.7% of employee compensation packages. As I mentioned on the previous slide, legislation has contributed quite a bit to the growing cost of benefits in the United States. And some of the benefits that are required by law include Social Security, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation insurance, family and medical leave, and health care. And we're going to break these down more in the upcoming slides. Both employers and employees contribute to the Social Security Fund through a payroll tax. And what Social Security provides us with is retirement insurance, survivor's insurance in the event of death, disability insurance, and hospital and supplementary medical insurance. Okay? Now, Social Security benefits have been changing over the years. So when we look at when we become eligible for Social Security, that age level has been increasing year after year. Okay, so people who are born in 1940, for example, were eligible for full benefits at 65, and then people who were born later than that didn't become eligible until 70. Okay, and this number can change. So by the time you're ready to retire, the number may be much higher than 70. We don't know at this point. All right. Another thing to know with Social Security is that you can continue working while you're receiving these benefits, but how much you can earn will be limited. And then for every dollar that you earn over the exempt amount or the maximum that you're allowed to earn, you'll see your Social Security benefits reduced. Unemployment insurance is a federally mandated program, but it's administered by states. So how it works does vary a little bit from state to state. And what unemployment insurance is designed to do is it's designed to minimize the hardship on employees when they lose their job. Okay, it provides them with some benefits, not full compensation, not full pay, but some sort of compensation when employees do lose their job. And to be eligible for unemployment, a person must be able to demonstrate that they were employed. Okay, think about it, it's insurance. Okay, there has to be a loss. If you didn't have a job, there's no loss for you to claim on. So you must have lost your job. You must be available for work. You have to be actively seeking work, so you're trying to mitigate the risk by seeking work. Okay, and you have to show that you weren't discharged for cause, didn't quit voluntarily, or not out of work because of a labor dispute. So for example, if you were on strike or you were fired for stealing, you would not be eligible for unemployment insurance. Now, when an employee claims unemployment insurance, the employer doesn't pay that amount directly to them. it comes from the unemployment insurance fund, but most of this funding comes from taxes on the employers. And not every employer pays the same amount in taxes here. All right, how employers pay into this tax fund is based upon their experience rating because this is an insurance program. So if you drive a car and you think about it, if you get into a lot of accidents or you get a lot of speeding tickets, then your insurance rate is probably very high because you're considered a high-risk driver. Well, if an employer has a lot of employees or former employees who are claiming unemployment insurance, they're considered a high-risk employer. So employers have a motivation to reduce the number of former employees who are claiming unemployment insurance because they don't want to have a negative experience rating. All right, so as an HR manager, you need to think about how you're going to manage this experience rating. Okay, part of it can be through planning. All right, part of it may be at times you may contest people's unemployment claims, but you have to be very careful as you think about contesting claims because even though you may feel like you're right to contest a claim, you don't want to develop a reputation for being an employer who contests unemployment claims because that's not going to make you very attractive in the marketplace. You also are going to want to think about the ethical implications of contesting unemployment insurance claims. How is that going to impact your former employees? How is that going to impact their families and so on and so forth? So you have a lot of decisions that you have to work through as you think about how to manage your experience rating and reduce your costs associated with unemployment insurance. Another type of insurance that employers have to carry is workers' compensation insurance. Okay, and this varies a little bit in terms of how it's done state by state. In some states, all employers contribute to the same large fund. In other states, employers have the ability to purchase their own insurance plans. But basically, this program is in place so that when employees get hurt on the job through genuine accidents, that they still have a way to bring home earnings. Okay, and it operates under a principle of no fault liability, which means that as long as the employer was not intentionally contributing to a dangerous workplace, then they cannot be sued for the accident. So if you walk outside in the middle of a snowstorm and your employer's been trying to keep things clean, but they can't keep up with the snowstorm, you slip on the ice and you get hurt, yes, you would be eligible for workers' compensation. No, you could not sue your employer for that. Okay, generally speaking, when an employee files a workers' comp claim, they'll receive 2/3 of their earnings tax-free. Okay, another important thing to know is that many insurance plans require that these accidents be reported within a designated time period, which means if you fall, if you get hurt, if something happens, then you need to report this immediately, even if you don't think it's a big deal. As HR managers, we need to be enforcing this because if our employees are not reporting injuries and accidents when they happen, we may find ourselves where we're in a position where we're responsible for them but unable to successfully file a workers' compensation claim. There are 4 different major categories of benefits covered under workers' compensation. The first is disability income to cover employees in terms of their missed income resulting from the accident. The second is medical care for costs associated with medical care that results from the accident. The third is death benefits, and the fourth is rehabilitative benefits. And how much workers' compensation insurance costs the employer is going to be contingent upon a variety of different risk factors, including an experience rating and the type of work that is being done. And if you think about the type of work that's being done, I'm a college professor. I don't really have too many risks in front of me. I did trip up the stairs the other day, but that's a rarity, and that's probably more me than an industry hazard issue. Okay, somebody who works on an oil rig or somebody who works in forestry is going to be in a position where they're in a much more dangerous job, and there's a lot greater risk there, much more higher likelihood that they would need workers' compensation insurance. Therefore, in fields like that, the premiums will be higher for employers than in a field like the one where I'm in. The next legally required benefit that we're going to talk about here is the Family and Medical Leave Act. Now, FMLA requires that all government organizations and private organizations with 50 or more employees within a 75-mile radius must provide up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave after childbirth, adoption, or foster care placement to care for a seriously ill family member or for an employee's own serious illness. Okay. Now, FMLA also guarantees that upon the employee's return to work, they will receive the same or comparable job assignment to what they had before they left on FMLA leave. All right, if you'd like to learn more about FMLA, I have a little more detailed video on it on my YouTube page. It's highlighted over here on the right in the bottom right hand corner. You can check that out. Not all leave that employees can take is legally required. All right, in the United States, there are a variety of different types of paid leave that employers provide that are optional, okay, such as vacations, holidays, and sick leave. Okay, the average paid leave in the US is 23 vacation days and 10 paid holidays per year, and often sick leave accumulates with the length of service at an organization. Now, one important thing that you do want to consider when you think about setting up a leave program within your organization is whether or not you're going to use PTO options or if you're going to have traditional sick and vacation time. And what happens with PTO options is we take all the time that we give to an employee and we put it in one bank and we just say, you use it how you want to use it. And this may sound great because we can kind of build up the number and say, wow, you have 28 days of PTO, or give them some very large number there. But the problem with PTO is we've now mixed sick and vacation days, and that can actually be dissatisfying for employees, okay? Because what can happen is somebody can have a vacation scheduled and then get sick, and then all of a sudden they're using their PTO, and this becomes problematic because they have to cancel their vacation. Now all of a sudden they're a little more of a dissatisfied employee, all right? Another problem that we can have is thinking about what are our policies going to be for using PTO. Okay, when we have vacation and sick days separate, we tend to have policies for using sick days and policies for using vacation. But when we have PTO, the water gets a little murkier there. Okay, so if you're going on vacation, we may want you to give us notice and schedule it, but if you're sick, you really can't do that. So as you make your decisions as an HR manager about how you're going to handle paid leave, these are some of the choices you'll have to make. Now, related to sick days, as an HR manager, you're going to want to be thinking about health care insurance. And the relevant law here is the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Now, you may have heard of this referred to as Obamacare, but we're going to refer to it by its proper name here in this course, here in this lesson, because it's important to think about the law in terms of the law, not in terms of the person. Okay? Now, the Affordable Care Act did not require employers to provide health care for their employees, but it did say that if you choose not to, you're going to have to pay a penalty. Okay, and small businesses can buy insurance from the shop. If employers don't provide insurance, their employees can go to the marketplace to purchase insurance. And the law is really complex and changing. So the biggest thing that I can tell you at this point is that you're going to want to watch this as the years go on, because how the Affordable Care Act works in practice and whether or not it changes is really going to be influenced by what the legislature and the executive office do. Now, when it comes to medical insurance, over 70% of full-time employees in the United States receive medical benefits from their employers. Now, more are eligible than that, but if you look at people who are in, say, two-income households, typically only one person will take their employer's medical insurance because there's not a cost benefit to the employee for both of them to take it. And policies related to medical insurance will cover things like hospital expenses, surgical expenses, doctor's visits, and they'll also provide discounts in addition to payments. And the discounts are the real key here. If you ever look at your doctor's invoice, often what you'll see is that the initial charge is almost twice of what insurance allows them to bill. Okay, so insurance might have a built-in 50% discount or a built-in 60% discount there. And that is one of the key benefits that comes from your medical insurance, is that discount in addition to the payments they provide. Now, as I just mentioned, more employees have access to healthcare benefits through their employer than actually take advantage of it. Okay, and really what I want you to take away from this chart here as you look over this is not the different percentages. You know, the point here is not to say, oh, medical care is more important than life insurance or anything like that. But I just want you to take a look at this and recognize how frequently employers provide these different benefits for their employees. And what this does here is it sets an expectation in the marketplace. So if you're an employer who is not providing these benefits, you're violating that expectation, you're violating that norm, and that's going to make you a less attractive employer. So if you want to be competitive as an employer in the marketplace, you need to consider what your competition is doing in terms of providing benefits and make sure that you're competitive. Another law that is relevant to healthcare insurance is the law that we commonly refer to as COBRA. And what COBRA does, it basically requires employers to allow their employees to extend their healthcare insurance coverage at the group rates for up to 36 months after separation. Okay, typically it's 18 months, and the employee themselves can only be covered for up to 18 months, but spouses and dependent children can be covered for 36 depending on the situation. All right, and the reason for COBRA, what COBRA does is it allows you to continue to benefit from those discounts that we talked about previously after you lose your insurance. Okay, now if the reason that insurance is lost is termination, then COBRA eligibility is 18 months. Okay, if the reason is something other than that, such as the employee enrolls in Medicare, there's a divorce, the employee dies, or there's a loss of dependent child status, then we see that extended coverage can continue up to 36 months. And the logic behind this is that essentially the dependents of the employee don't have control over the employee's actions that are causing them to lose their health care coverage. So a few key pointers on how COBRA works. Okay, the employer can require people who elect to continue coverage through COBRA to pay the full cost of the coverage plus a 2% administrative fee. And you may be wondering, well, then why would you elect COBRA? Well, those discounts are the reason. Okay, so essentially you're looking to keep your health insurance, not have to change doctors, and keep those discounts. All right, so you're going to have to pay a little bit more for your coverage. What that means is, let's say your coverage costs your employer $1,000 a month total, and historically you have put $400 a month into that, and your employer's put $600 a month into it. Well, now that you're no longer employed there, your employer is not going to allow you to take the $600 a month from them. You're going to pay the full $1,000 a month. Okay. Now, the plan has to allow employees to pay the required premiums on a monthly basis. You can't force people to pay this annually. There's got to be a 30-day grace period for payments on a premium, so somebody can't get kicked out of the COBRA program for being a day late. Okay, employees have to have 60 days to elect coverage from either the date that they're furnished an election notice or the date they would lose coverage. What that means for you as an HR manager is when you send out the COBRA notification to your employees, you want that to get out there quickly, because every day that you delay sending out that notice, you're extending how long they're eligible for COBRA. Okay, and then finally, once you've elected, or once an employee has elected to utilize COBRA, they have to make their initial premium payment within 45 days, or they can be considered ineligible. Now, there are a variety of different approaches that organizations can take to control healthcare costs. And one option is through managed care. And this is when we work with insurance companies that are going to try to manage expenses through different types of criteria. So for example, some insurance companies will have situations where they will require referrals for different services. Other insurance companies will require pre-authorizations for prescriptions. And the pre-authorizations are basically a situation where the doctor writes the prescription, but then the insurance company has to actually review the prescription and approve it. So those are examples of managed care. All right, some organizations will decide to use an HMO, or a health maintenance organization. And with an HMO, what happens is basically the insurance company will pay flat fees to different providers, and those are your in-network providers. Those are the only providers that your employees can go to. But there will either be no fees, no cost to the employees, or the cost will be very minimal once they've paid their premiums. Okay, some people love HMOs, some people don't. As an employee, I love my HMO because my healthcare costs were very low when I had an HMO. But some other people who I worked with disliked it because they didn't like having to switch doctors in order to use their HMO. Then you have a PPO, and this is a preferred provider organization. And these are when insurance companies have providers who they prefer that you go to who are in network, and then other providers who are out of network. And it is much less expensive for employees to go to the in-network providers that have different agreements with the insurance company. Okay, organizations can also offer their employees something called a flexible spending account. And what a flexible spending account does, it has very little cost for the employer. There are some administrative costs involved in it, but basically you allow employees to take a certain percentage of their income, typically can't be more than $2,500 or $3,000, take a certain percentage of their income and put it into what we call a flexible spending account. That income is not taxed, but can then be used to pay for medical expenses. Okay, so it could be used to pay for your copays at the doctor's office, your prescriptions, certain over-the-counter drugs. All right, and then what happens here basically is that the employees are able to lower their income that they pay taxes on just a little bit so that they make a little more money without the employer actually giving them that much money in terms of compensation. All right, now I'm going to illustrate for you how an FSA works through tax benefits. Okay, so let's imagine that we have an employee who earns $40,000 per year, and that person's income tax bracket is 30%. That may not be accurate, but we're just going to use it in the example. Okay, so that would make their tax deductions that will come out of their paycheck $12,000 for the year. Okay, and then let's say this person has $2,500 they spend on medical expenses every year. When we subtract their taxes and their medical expenses from their salary, we get $25,500. Now over here we've got another employee who makes $40,000 per year, okay, and they also have $2,500 a year in medical expenses, but they have an FSA for $2,500. Okay, so they're not taxed on the full $40,000. They're taxed on $37,500, and that yields an income tax for them of $11,250. All right, their $2,500 in medical expenses comes from their FSA. Okay, so they put that money into the FSA and they use the FSA to pay those expenses. And then when we subtract the FSA and taxes from their salary, we get $26,250. So as you can see here, that's a difference of $750 in the employee's pocket, all because they had money that was put into an FSA. So even though both these employees have the same salary here of $40,000, one employee was able to walk away with $750 more than the other employee because they were able to shield some of their income from taxes through the use of the FSA. Now let's talk about the logistics of how the FSA actually works at your organization. All right, so at the start of the year, the organization will put the amount that the employees designated into the FSA. So the company will deposit the entire amount, and then each paycheck, a deduction will come from the employee's paycheck that is helping to basically pay back the company for the money that they've already put in here. Now, if the employee leaves in the middle of the year, then the company recovers the balance of the FSA. Now, who wins and loses in this? Well, it depends on how much money has been spent. Okay, so if the employee has spent a large portion of the FSA but hasn't contributed much, then they've probably taken out more than they've put in, and the employee would have an advantage when they leave. If the employee has put in more than they've taken out, then the company would have an advantage. Now, it's important to make sure that you communicate to your employees that verification of their payments can be required. So even though you would think all this information would transmit electronically, the administrator of your FSA can send an email to your employees and tell them that they need to provide receipts for different transactions. And if they fail to provide those receipts on time, their account is going to be locked up. And then when the account is locked, that's going to prevent the employee from using it, which may create a situation where the employee is unable to access funds that are being taken out of their paycheck. So you want to make sure that your employees are really clear on how this works, because some people aren't receipt keepers, and they might be throwing out all these receipts, and that can create some real problems for them in terms of accessing the funds in their FSA later on. A couple of other benefits programs that we haven't touched on yet are consumer-driven health plans, and this is basically a situation where your employees will have some input into the type of health plan that they can get. An example being a high deductible plan. So some employees may choose to pay lower premiums but have a higher deductible meaning they have to pay more of their medical expenses out of pocket before insurance kicks in. Other employees may choose to pay a little bit of a higher monthly premium but have a lower deductible. Those are examples of consumer-driven health plans there. And then we also have employee wellness plans or employee wellness programs. And what these are designed to do is they're designed to provide your employees with opportunities and ways to get healthy. So maybe you give them gym memberships, maybe you have some type of way that you're encouraging them to eat healthy through discounts on healthy food in your cafeteria. But employee wellness programs, what they do is they help your employees get healthy, but they also can help you drive down your healthcare costs, because if your employees are eating healthy and working out, they're not going to be drawing expenses upon your medical plan in the same way as if they were not behaving in a healthy manner. A few other types of insurance coverage and additional coverages that are typically available to employees include dental care, vision care, mental health care, access to birthing centers, and prescription drug programs. Now, it's very important that if you have programs like these, that you communicate to your employees how they work. And I'm going to give you an example here from early on in my career. We had two different prescription drug programs at my company. And one was a basic program where you could go into a pharmacy, and the other was a mail-away program. And the mail-away program was basically for people who had ongoing prescriptions. Okay, it was not something you were supposed to use for emergency medications. But I didn't understand how the prescription drug programs worked, and I actually ordered an antibiotic for someone in my family through the mail order program, and then we were waiting for the antibiotic, and really it probably shouldn't have even been available through the mail order program, but it was, and there was a lot of confusion on how all this worked. Okay, and HR ended up helping me understand benefits better a little bit after that, but you want to make sure that you're proactive in terms of communicating these things to your employees. All right, the other component you want to make sure that your employees are aware of is that the benefits we're talking about here don't typically extend to adult children. And what I mean by that is that the Affordable Care Act basically said that adult children up to age 26 have to have health care insurance available to them if health care insurance is available to them prior to becoming legal adults through their parent's employer. Okay, so you basically, that means that you could, as an under 26-year-old person, you could stay on your parents' insurance until you're 26. As a parent, you can keep your kids on your insurance until they're 26, and so on, right? But all these other programs don't have to include your adult children. Now, this is an employer choice here. So at many employers, they don't provide dental care, vision care, prescription drug programs to adult children. All right, some employers do, and that is looked at as a great benefit when they do, but it's not something that employees can count on. So if, as an employer, you've made the decision that you want to let people keep their adult children on their dental care and on their vision care and so on, you definitely want to make sure that you communicate that to your employees and that you use that as part of your recruiting process, because that sends a very strong message. Many employers also offer life insurance, and they may actually provide some life insurance coverage for employees, not typically large amounts, but enough maybe to cover a funeral and help a family get through a transition time. And they'll also offer employees opportunities to purchase life insurance at a discount through them. All right, very often the life insurance policies that we'll be talking about here are term life insurance policies, and these are policies that are designed so that if the employee was to pass away during the term of the policy, the beneficiaries would receive a death payment, but after a certain period of time, the insurance policy would cease to exist. So maybe if your employees buy into a term policy, maybe there's a 20-year cap on it. Once they get to 20 years, there's no longer a payout because the policy was basically designed to cover an unexpected death, not a death that would be of more aging and natural causes that we might have been able to predict. Okay, so some people don't like term life insurance policies because they view them as something that they're paying into that they're not necessarily getting a return. But really what you're trying to get a return on with a term life insurance policy, if you're offering this to your employees, is you're offering them an opportunity to basically purchase a life insurance policy that will cover their family and their beneficiaries in the event that the employee should unexpectedly pass away during their normal work career. Employers can also offer their employees different types of disability insurance. And what disability insurance does is it allows their employees to retain some type of income in the event that they experience a disability and it impacts their ability to work. Okay, now there are a variety of different things that we will typically think of when we think of disabilities, but you want to make sure that you remember that very often disability insurance can cover different types of injuries that you may not be thinking of right now. Okay, so the short-term disability insurance, that will provide income in terms of a percentage of an employee's salary paid as benefits for typically less than 6 months. Okay, and this is more often than not what we will see employers purchase for their employees because it has a limit on what the contributions are, and basically it's more cost effective than long-term disability insurance. Now, long-term disability insurance pays a percentage of the employee's salary as benefits after an initial period and potentially for as long as the employee lives. Okay, now long-term disability insurance tends to be more expensive. It also tends to pay a lower percentage of the salary than short-term disability insurance does. Now, as you can see from the chart on the right here, retirement programs play an important role in how people over the age of 65 earn income. Okay, and there are a variety of different types of retirement plans that employers can provide for employees. Okay, there are contributory plans, which are funded by both the employer and the employee. There are non-contributory plans that are funded just by the employer. There are defined benefit plans where people are guaranteed to get a specific amount of money. Now, we've seen these traditionally in government jobs. We have seen them in the private sector as well, although they've almost disappeared from the private sector at this point. Okay, most of what we see at this point in time would fall under the category of contributory plans, where both the employer and the employee are contributing to the employee's retirement program. Now, most organizations at this point in time are using defined contribution plans, and what happens with these types of plans is typically we'll have a 401k set up if we're in the private sector, 403b if we're in a nonprofit, or 457 if we're in the government. And what will happen is a certain percentage of the employee's paycheck will be deposited into that plan each month, and that will be defined. It will be a minimum amount that gets defined here. Okay, often the employer will also have a matching amount that they will put in. So I've seen organizations where the employee is required to put in 5% and then the organization matches with 9% or something to that effect. All right. And then what can happen as well is the employee can opt to increase the amount that they invest in their contribution plan. Okay, now that doesn't mean that the employer is going to increase what they invest, but the employee can increase what they're going to invest. All right, and it's critical that we speak with our employees, particularly early in their career, and talk to them about how important it is to invest in these programs, because we don't want people to be trapped into working when they're at retirement age. And you can see in this graph over here on the right, you can see when $3,000 is saved annually, how that will actually earn to be almost twice as much money if someone starts from ages 21 to 29 than if they start from ages 31 to 39. So the earlier that we can get employees to start investing in their retirement funds, the more they're going to be able to save, the more successful they're going to be in building their retirement plan, and the more freedom they're going to have to make decisions about when they want to retire later on. Now, when the employer is contributing to someone's 401k or their 403b or their 457, that money doesn't necessarily become the employee's right away. All right, there are some federal guidelines around this that are spelled out in ERISA. Okay, and what these guidelines say is that people need to fall into one of two categories. They need to either fully vest by the end of year 5, or they need to have staged vesting where they vest 20% per year starting at year 3. Okay, and that would leave someone fully vesting at the end of year 7. Okay, now these are the minimums. People can vest sooner. Okay, so I've seen organizations where people vest on what we call a cliff, like they're fully vested after year 2. I've seen organizations where people vest 100% in the first year. Now you might be wondering, as an employer, why wouldn't you just wait the maximum, right? Why wouldn't you just wait and make people be there 5 years to vest? Well, part of what you're balancing here is, yes, you don't really want to spend money on people that you don't have to spend, but also you want to think about how are you positioning yourself as an employer? Are you positioning yourself as an employer of choice? If you're letting people vest immediately, then the answer to that is probably yes. The other thing is you don't necessarily want to have an employee who wants to quit but is sticking around just so their retirement funds vest. Okay, if you have say a vesting cliff on year 5, meaning people have to be there till the end of year 5 and then they're fully vested, and you have someone who is absolutely miserable at your organization, they've been there for a little over 4 years, we know that when their satisfaction decreases, they're not going to be as productive as they were previously. Do we really want that person to stay with our organization for almost another year just to make sure that their retirement vests? Probably not. We probably want them to have the freedom to do what they want. And if they're being held captive, so to speak, by this vesting cliff, then we've made the employee feel like they don't have much choice in what they're doing either. Okay? Now, related to vesting rights, whatever you choose is going to be in your organization's summary plan description. Okay, and this is the document that you put out that describes what your retirement plan looks like in detail. And this is basically going to govern what you do. So as an HR manager, you need to be very aware and very deliberate in how this document is written. Okay, I've seen organizations that have violated their summary plan description. And when that happens, employees have rights, okay, because organizations have to follow the terms laid out in their summary plan description. And if the organization doesn't follow what's in the summary plan description, the employees can go to EBSA, the Employee Benefit and Security Administration, and EBSA can actually help them navigate through these challenges. All right, so as an employer, it's very important that you are deliberate in how you write your summary plan description and that you understand it and apply it correctly. Because if you don't, there are government agencies that can hold you accountable to that. We're also seeing a trend where employers are providing more family-friendly benefits than they have in the past. So they may be providing more leave than is required by FMLA. They may be providing some type of child care benefits in terms of having on-site child care, or maybe offering reimbursement for child care expenses, maybe offering an opportunity to set up college savings accounts for children, and even elder care. Okay, and typically with elder care, they don't offer any financial reimbursement for elder care, but they'll provide resources and information for employees who may be taking care of elders in their family. Some other optional benefits programs that we see organizations provide are subsidized cafeterias. So here you have a cafeteria on site and the employer pays a portion of the meal so that the employee is not paying full price. Probably the coolest one of these that I've ever seen was out in the Silicon Valley, where an organization subsidized food in the cafeteria based upon its health factor. Okay, those of us who have been to the grocery store and tried to buy healthy food, we all know that healthy food costs more than junk food. Okay, but what this organization did was they set up a plan where the way they subsidized the food, it actually made the healthiest things the least expensive for the employees. So the employees actually were rewarded by eating healthy. Okay, some organizations have on-site healthcare services, fitness centers, dry cleaning. Organizations may offer you moving and relocation expenses if they want you to relocate, and that's often very standard, that if your company asks you to move, or if you're going to ask employees to move, that you're going to provide expenses to cover the cost of that move. All right, sometimes we see employee discounts, like retailers like Target will offer a percentage off of product for their employees. We may see tuition reimbursement, where either an employer will help pay back student loans or will cover the cost of classes if an employee wants to take classes. Okay, employers may cover dues for professional organizations. So if you are an HR professional and you are a member of HRM, your employer may cover that for you. Okay, and they may also offer different types of off-site company recreation. Okay, and LL Bean is a great company to look at for all the different types of benefits that they offer in this type of area. Benefits decisions aren't always easy for HR managers to make. Okay, as you make decisions about benefits, you have to think about what are your organization's goals, what's your budget look like, what do your current employees expect, what are potential employees going to expect, and you have to be realistic about this. If you're not offering a benefits package that is consistent with or better than what's out there in your industry, you're going to have a lot of trouble recruiting and retaining employees. And as you consider what types of benefits are going to help you recruit and retain employees, you have to remember that employees expect to receive benefits that they would get at other organizations. Okay, so they obviously expect everything that you're legally required to provide, but they also expect everything that other organizations are providing voluntarily. Okay, they expect benefits that they're going to actually use. So if you're offering benefits that are, say, a discount on your product and your product is something that your employees aren't buying, then that's not really a very useful benefit. Okay, and you also have to remember finally that benefits have different value to different employees. Okay, so a person with a large family may care more about a family health plan than a person who doesn't have a family. Okay, similarly, somebody who is really active might care more about a gym membership than someone who has never been to a gym and never wants to go to a gym again in their life. So you can't expect that each benefit's going to provide the same value to all employees. You need to think about your package as being a benefits package that is going to appeal to people because it's diverse in nature to appeal to your diverse employee population. Related to that, you may think about offering some flexibility in your benefits package so that employees can choose different aspects of the benefits package that appeal to them. When we do this in healthcare, we often consider this a cafeteria style plan where employees will go and decide, no, I don't want vision coverage. Yes, I want dental. There's a couple different types of healthcare in here, and I'm going to choose the second type, and so on and so forth. And when we do this, when we give people choices here, we're giving them freedom. We're giving them freedom to choose the types of benefits that are going to meet their needs. We're empowering them, and we're showing them that we care. And that could speak a lot to our employees. And as employers try to provide the best benefits packages they can, they're also trying to cut costs, right? Because benefits are expensive. And as they try to cut costs here, part of what they're trying to do is figure out a value ratio. They're trying to provide the greatest benefit that they can to their employees while reducing their costs as much as possible. And that's where we see some of this shift from traditional health insurance to PPOs and CDHPs and so on. We are also seeing some cost shift to employees, where employees are paying a higher percentage of their health care than they had in the past. Okay, and really the balance that you're trying to maintain here as an HR manager is how do you cut costs while still meeting employee expectations when it comes to benefits. And finally, you can provide the best benefits package in the world, but if you're not communicating the value of it to your people, it's not going to be as effective as it can be. So you need to consider multiple different types of media that you can use to communicate to your employees. Okay, and by multiple types of media, I mean you may want to communicate to them on social media, you may want to email them, you may want to have internal memos. You have to think about different ways to reach different people. Okay, this is going to be very critical to you. You also want to make sure that you have some type of way that you're really helping to break these benefits packages down for employees. We've moved to a lot of self-service functions in HR, and in many ways self-service has been beneficial to the industry. Okay, but what it has done in the area of benefits is it's added some confusion because there are certain aspects to benefits that maybe aren't worded very well in the literature. Maybe employees aren't really clear on them. Maybe there's some ambiguities, and sometimes our employees just want to talk to a person and get some clarity on the package. So we need to make sure that our HR teams are educated on the benefits packages and prepared to answer questions, and that they're available to talk to employees, but also making sure that employees know that they're available. Okay, they should be having different types of sessions where they can talk to employees, making it known that employees can come in and ask questions and so on, because the value of your benefits package is only as strong as your employees' awareness of the value. That's it for our benefits lesson. Thanks so much for joining me. This is Billy Obenauer saying I hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something, and we'll talk to you soon.